We are live. Trying to catch last rays of sun. Picture. I guess it will shine here sometime. Okay, so I had the worst flu. I was sick for 10 days. Before I got my flu, sorry about the cough. I had this semi-flu, so I feel like I've been sick for 2 to 3 weeks, which is a long time, and I still haven't gotten back to exercising, so this is just, or I just been sitting at home and trying to do what I can, computer stuff. But I posted my comment on Instagram just now. Hi. And I was talking about how, or it actually was a comment I made for Nicole Reese earlier, and she writes a Substack called Terenity, and she writes about communities. And she's from the United States, and she's been researching communities as a scientist for 7 years, and I've been following her on Instagram and now here on Substack. And I answered to her question about how could we make communities mainstream. And my answer was that we just need to keep talking about communities and make the community talk mainstream first. And I wrote that I feel it's a really natural continuum if we just keep talking about the topics of mental health and trauma sensitivity, or like being trauma informed, because those discussions always end up in the conclusion that people need real safe human connections, and that we live in a society or in a world where the societies don't offer people those real safe human connections. So I think that we shouldn't stop the discussions there, because we usually just end up with the problem. Like, okay, too bad, we live in this sort of world. There's nothing we can do. We're doomed. I think that's just the starting point. That's the point where we could start discussing, okay, what do we need if we want to start building communities? What do people need? What skills do people need? And that's basically the topic of my Substack publication. I want to write and theorize and also share my real life experiences of how to build communities, how to be in communities, and what skills I personally notice that I'm lacking, and what makes it hard, because I have noticed that it is quite hard. It's so easy to talk about communities if we go a few steps further. Like, okay, let's say in few years community talk is mainstream. Everyone is talking about communities, and we're just as excited about building communities as we are now making every service and public health system trauma informed. Now we want to build communities. What do we need? And I have noticed that I very much need just repetition, practice, exercises on how does it feel to be somatically, which means that like in my body, my nervous system, how do I feel safe in groups? And I believe that, or I don't even have to believe, I know that we Finnish people, we aren't that safe around others. And we just name it as being introverted. Like, oh, we're just Finnish people, we like our own privacy. Um, but I do really think that we are still traumatized. There's lots of research on over-generational trauma and how Finnish wars still affect our nervous systems. Mm, and also the culture, because we have lost, uh, or I don't think we have lost the skill or the habit of gathering. But when we gather, um, I feel that it always, pretty much always, stays on the surface level. We keep ourselves busy, we talk about the everyday topics and the weather, and we go through our achievements. And this is not to blame on anyone or even the culture, but like that's how we have been uh, growing up. Mm. But I don't think that in modern day Finnish family gatherings, it's not that usual that the group of people comes together and ends up in this really calm, safe, bodily state. Sometimes, I think that it sometimes happens, mm, but we're so busy. I think that if it's not your go-to setting, then when you meet other people, you're like, oh, now I'm safe. There's others around. If it's always the regulating phase where you meet people and then you have to be alert and you're like, okay, okay, is this safe? Can I relax? Can I let go of my guard? Uh, when I did social work and when I worked with people, and still when I do, let's say I do the sex counseling thing, I think that people start to get relaxed after an hour of talking sometimes. And if there's trauma or background of trauma, it doesn't probably happen within the first meetings. It can take few or even more. And I think that it's uh, like if you go into the trauma informed uh, practice, that talks a lot about the setting and how the room is lit and organized, and how do you sit? Do you sit like straight facing your customer or your friend or your family member, or um, like are there elements that calm you and make you feel safe, or are there elements that keep you distracted and always on guard? Mm. And those are the things that I notice that when I work in the field of professional BDSM, I think that it's more allowed to create the setting that you need or your customer needs. And it's not viewed as strange if you dim the lights and you set some candles and there's nice scents, and that helps you and your customer to relax and get in the headspace of now we're going to do something that is maybe a bit uncomfortable or maybe enjoyable. Uh, but I don't think that that's possible in the public social welfare or healthcare systems. Maybe it's starting to sneak in there, but not yet present everywhere. Mm, and maybe now we jump back into community. Mm, I think that that could be one community skill, knowing how to organize social gatherings that feel safe, starting with the physical and material environment. Mm, And we could start talking about these things, not as some niche, but as a really like a casual thing. Like if there is a work gathering, maybe if everyone took it mm, seriously, that hey, okay, could we organize this meeting a bit differently? Could we uh, maybe tweak the structure of the gathering, how we like enter the space? Is there any uh, like mm, group grounding? Because I know that this is a thing that happens in eco villages and intentional communities, that when people come together, mm, there is space and time and structure for grounding together for that group of people who are present there. And it's not nothing. It's actually really, because you can't really connect. Like that's again, it's a brain thing. If you're not safe, the circuits of your brain that are made for social connection, they are not functioning, and you're not gonna connect no matter how long you spend in that room with those people. Mm, so yeah, skills, community awareness skills, how to be in community, how to help yourself and others to be in community. Uh, and I'm not a master on these. I still struggle to, even though I know theoretically, I know that these are the things that could help us all feel safe and grounded and relaxed. I still don't have the actual tools, or um, I'm just learning to have those tools, and also to, I think it also takes, I don't know if guts is the right word, like it takes guts, but it takes uh, self assurance. Like, hey, this is actually a thing and I can stand behind it. And now I'm gonna ask this of others. Like, hey, I need us to take a minute and just breathe together and not. Because I think that before this journey of actually making this a thing, like, okay, I'm now gonna start practicing sharing, writing about community skills. I think that I felt that I was too much for asking others to ground with me or take a moment or breathe, because it's not something that we do in our everyday encounters. We just meet other people, we feel a bit uncomfortable, and we just try to manage that inside ourselves. Like it's a me problem that I can't regulate around other people. And of course, some of it is a me problem. I've went to therapy. I've went to physiotherapist. I've meditated. I do dancing. I explored BDSM and Tantra and many, many things. Uh, but after that, like after you have the skills that you know how to regulate yourself, like well enough, you don't have to be perfect. I think after that, it should be normal to ask for others to co-regulate and make the space uh, calm and safe enough for connection. Hmm. Because I just listened to this book, Kaisa Peltola, Häpeän alkemia. It was a brilliant book. And she talked about the brain chemistry and the neurology of social connection. And I think that mm, just understanding that fact that if your brain is not feeling safe, you will never feel a social connection and you will always be deprived of that. Because she mentioned, I don't know the original or remember the original reference, but probably just neurobiology. But our left brain hemisphere is like the rational thinking, logical thinking. And if that is activated, and usually our right side of the brain is not activated, that's where the social connection is, the emotions, everything. And usually I would broaden this, not just Finnish society, but the Western society. You have to block that side, the right side of the brain, because mm, we don't have time for emotions. We don't have time for deep connections. You just have to function and push through, and there's no time to stop in the middle of okay, now you're in a grocery store and you start having, I don't know, a memory, a sad memory. You don't just start crying there and let that emotion go. You just like block it and you push through and you go. Mm, and then that gets repeated and it gets stuck. And if we don't consciously make time for mm, unraveling all that blocked emotion, then we as people are blocked. And when we block that, we also block the connection to others. And with that left side of the brain, I think it was partially new information to me. But she mentioned that it's impossible. If you are only left side active, it is impossible for that side of the brain to create a sense of connection to other people. You try, but you're stuck in a loop that just finds patterns and tries to solve problems and rationally think its way through of why isn't there connection. But you're stuck in that loop. Like, where is the connection? Where is the connection? Because the connection is on the other side. And if you don't feel safe, you never get to the connection. And I have actually noticed this in my community uh, experiences. Because my community experience is that I moved in with my friend who was fairly new to me. We didn't know each other that well. I think we had met like 2 times and then phoned each other a few times. But she very bravely invited me here, and we started sharing this self-sufficient house in rural Finland. Mm, and with her, I've encountered the reality that because we didn't know each other, we didn't always feel safe around each other. And there was no reason. I think it was just the fact that we didn't intentionally stop to create those safe uh, coexistence moments because we were busy, or I was busy. And when I had time, she was busy, and I had no experience on how to create a safe communal house experience with someone, and she didn't either. So we ended up feeling quite separated and alone, even though we lived in the same house. Uh, and I guess my co-living experiences were from living with people I knew. So that's by default already a lot safer because you know the other person. So even if you're both busy, there is the foundation where you can lean on. Like, okay, I like this. person, they like me, and we can just keep going even though we are busy and don't have time to connect. Um, but we didn't do that. And that was, now looking back, that was, uh, I don't want to say dumb, but maybe a bit naive. And that is the learning curve. And now, again, I have my other friend. And with this friend, we have a long background, long history. Uh, and he now lives here with me. And my other friend now is currently living in southern Finland, but she might come back at one point. We're not sure. Mm, but again, I'm in the situation, maybe a bit different situation now, because now I'm in the situation where I know someone really well, but they don't know the other people who visit or I hang out with. And now I should be able to make safe gatherings with this new formation. And yeah, I am realizing that I don't have those skills, even if I uh, am almost a trained professional and I can say that, yeah, I've worked with people, but I've actually worked with people in the old system. And that system doesn't prioritize safety and real connection. It prioritizes getting things done. So I noticed that that's the method I'm using here. I'm just uh, making a list like, okay, this and this needs to be done. It's done. Why are you not feeling safe? Mm, so I need more skills. And that's why I'm in this situation where I joined the Electronic Music Association. I'm trying to learn skills there, like community skills, how to gather as a group and organize. I think that's more about how to organize events and make things happen. But then here at home, I should really learn how to organize smaller get togethers and make them safe. So, yeah, I have to end this morning coffee with the realization that I don't know and I need to find out. And also, I knew when I was doing my bachelor's that I can study communities and eco villages theoretically as much as I want, but it will never solve the question of why it's not mainstream, why it's not happening everywhere. Because on paper, eco villages and communities, they are the perfect solution. So as an academic, I was just going like, why isn't this happening? This is brilliant. Why isn't this everywhere? What are the papers not getting? And I think that it's this reality that we as individuals, we don't have the skills to do this. We can learn them, and I'm very interested in learning. Um, but it's always, I think it's a bit same as we modern people. We know what's healthy living. We know that we should go to the gym. We know we should eat well. We know like to the smallest proportion of food and nutrient. Like we know how many grams we should eat proteins and carbohydrates and everything and exercise 3 times a week, 1 hour, get your sweat on. But we don't do it always. Some of us can, but we don't do it because um, having the scientific knowledge is not everything. It's not enough. It doesn't it doesn't show you all. It's just very, it's the, mm, I think that's just the thinking part. Like we know what we should do, but then we actually need to start doing. We need to live communities and then talk about those lived experiences with each other, just like we do about relationships. We are in relationships and then we talk about them and discuss and theorize. And I think that's a good combination. Mm. You're at the same time doing and theorizing and having discussions. Um, hmm. I'd say that that was the monologue of. I was aiming for 30 minutes. Now it's 26. Uh, do you have any thoughts or ideas on communities in your field where you're working or what your hobby is or just your personal life? Mm, what is your entry point into community and hmm, like do you have any lived experiences? I would love to hear about those. I also asked on Instagram because I really like to understand more about how community is related to different fields of expertise or just our society. So let's keep discussing community. Yay, thank you for the heart. And I will also uh, reuse this babble and turn it into an article because that's how we plan these days because everything is so busy that you have to create content by drinking morning coffee and babbling community. Okay, have a good week and let's spread the joyous message of communities wherever we go. And I'll see you next Monday. Bye.